There are those who walk in the light and speak only of peace, love, and harmony. And then there are the others, the ones who were forged in the fire, the ones who didn't choose the path, they were dragged into it. These are the dark chosen ones, not evil, not broken, but transdimensional beings assigned to carry duality in its rawest form. We don't speak about them often because their existence disrupts the spiritual narrative. They are not here to play the role of sainthood. They're here to embody paradox. And within that paradox, God gives them 7 rarest duality powers, gifts so potent they must be earned through suffering. If you've ever felt like your pain was sacred, like your isolation was a calling, like your rage carried wisdom, this message might be for you. And if it is, you already know it. You've been feeling the pull in your soul for years.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
The first rarest power is something I call sacred rage. This is not anger in the human sense, it's a divine intelligence that erupts when truth is being desecrated. When a dark chosen one feels this, they don't just get mad, they shift timelines. Sacred rage is the force that topples illusions, breaks generational curses, and destroys everything that's been built on lies. It is deeply misunderstood in spiritual communities, which often mistake it for ego or shadow. But here's the real test. When you feel that fire rise in you, do you suppress it to stay likable, or do you channel it into sacred action? The power of sacred rage is not in how loud it gets, it's in what it awakens. It can level a room without saying a word. It can heal a bloodline by refusing to repeat the pattern. And it only belongs to those who've been through lifetimes of being silenced. The second power is compassionate darkness. This is the ability to sit with someone in their deepest pain without needing to fix them, rescue them, or shine a light on them. Light chosen ones often try to uplift others out of suffering. But dark chosen ones know how to become the container for pain. They don't flinch when others fall apart. They don't recoil at someone's shadow. Why? Because they've made peace with their own. They've danced with their demons. They've hugged their inner monsters. And in doing so, they've unlocked a compassion that doesn't come from pity, it comes from recognition. When you carry this power, people come to you and break down without knowing why. They feel safe in your presence, not because you offer light, but because you offer depth. And in that depth, they find the parts of themselves that no one else was willing to witness. The third rarest duality power is energetic disruption. This is the one that confuses people the most. Dark chosen ones often walk into a room and instantly shift the energy without saying a word. Lights flicker. People get uncomfortable. Truths start to leak out. Secrets get exposed. That's not an accident. That's your field disrupting stagnant frequency. You don't even have to try. Your very presence is a mirror that forces others to confront what they've hidden. And this is where it gets painful, because most people won't thank you for it. They'll project. They'll call you too much. They'll avoid you. But deep down they know. They know you're not here to comfort them. You're here to wake them up. This power is not glamorous. It's lonely. But it's also sacred. Because every time you disrupt a lie, You offer someone a chance to remember who they truly are. Let me ask you something deeply personal. Have you ever felt like your very existence threatens people who don't even know why? That's not your imagination. That's not your ego. That's your frequency operating on a multi-dimensional level. You're not just a person, you're a cipher. A code embedded into this matrix by divine intelligence. And when people get close to you, their illusions begin to crack. Some will run, some will attack, but the rare ones, the ready ones, will stay. And those are the ones you were sent to unlock. That brings us to the fourth duality power, soul code activation. This is the ability to awaken dormant DNA in others simply through presence, words, or even silence. When a dark chosen one speaks, it's not just language, it's frequency. You're not giving advice, you're delivering keys. And those keys unlock ancient remembrance in others. They may not even know what happened, but something inside them shifts forever. This is why your words carry so much weight. You've probably noticed that people either hang on to every syllable you say, or they resist you with everything they have. That's because you're not speaking from the mind. You're speaking from the void. And the void is terrifying to anyone who's still clinging to the illusion of control. The fifth rarest power is void walking. This is the ability to navigate uncertainty, loss, and death, not just physically, but energetically. You've died before, haven't you? Not just in past lives, but in this one. You've been stripped of identity, stripped of hope, stripped of meaning. And somehow you still rose. Not because you found light, but because you became the void. Dark chosen ones don't fear death. They carry it as a teacher. And in doing so, they become guides for others who are going through their own ego death. Void walkers are the ones who can sit in nothingness and smile, because they've learned that nothingness is not absence. It's potential. You must understand, these powers were not given to you, they were unlocked through suffering. That's the great secret. God does not hand these gifts to the comfortable. He carves them into the bones of those who have been through the fire. The sixth power is sacral time distortion. This is the ability to bend time through emotional intensity. Have you ever noticed that when you cry from your soul, time seems to stop? Or when you're in a deep energetic exchange, minutes feel like hours? That's not drama. That's dimensional manipulation. Your body, your emotions, your presence, they are tools for temporal alchemy. That's why others feel like they've known you for lifetimes, even if they just met you. That's why your presence lingers in their dreams, in their spirit, in their blood. You are a living portal to other realms. And you didn't earn that by being perfect. You earned it by being real. The seventh and final rarest duality power is the most sacred and the most dangerous. I call it mirror of God. This is the power to reflect to others exactly what they need to see in order to evolve, even if it breaks them. This is not a conscious choice. It's a divine function. Your existence becomes a mirror so pure, so brutal, so accurate, that people either awaken or collapse in your presence. This is why your relationships are so intense. Why people love you and fear you at the same time. why some are obsessed with you, while others try to destroy you. You are holding up the mirror of God, and most people can't handle the reflection. But those who can are changed forever. They'll never be able to go back to sleep. You see, these 7 powers are not just gifts, they are assignments. They come with a price. You don't get to be comfortable. You don't get to be understood. You don't get to be normal. But you do get to be true. You do get to be free. You do get to walk through this world as a living paradox, both light and dark, both healer and disruptor, both lover and destroyer. And that is why you were chosen, not to fit in, not to be worshipped, but to remind the world of its forgotten power. And now I ask you, which of these 7 powers have already awakened in you? Which ones are calling to you from the depths of your memory? And are you ready not just to claim them, but to carry them? The divine price, why most souls collapse before ever activating these 7 sacred powers. Every soul thinks they want power until they realize what it costs. Especially these powers. The 7 rarest duality powers are not rewards. They are burdens wrapped in brilliance. They are divine fires that sear through the illusion of comfort, identity, and external validation. And that's why most souls collapse before ever activating them. The truth is, these gifts cannot live in a body that still clings to who it used to be. They cannot operate through a mind that still cares what the world thinks. They require surrender so complete, it feels like death. And for many, that death is too terrifying to walk through. So they retreat. They numb. They spiritualize their pain instead of embodying it. Because once you begin to awaken these powers, your life becomes a constant crucible of truth. And the ego? It doesn't survive that kind of fire. Let's be honest, how many times have you wanted to just give up? Not because you're weak, but because you're awake. You've seen through the games. You've felt the weight of the collective pain. You've been the one who holds space for everyone else while secretly wondering, who's going to hold space for me? That's the paradox of the dark chosen ones. You carry everyone's shadows because you've made peace with your own. But that peace didn't come through meditation cushions or vision boards. It came through grief, through sitting in a room where no one understood you, through being betrayed by the people you would have died for, through looking at your own reflection and wondering, why me? And that's exactly the moment God begins to whisper, because you said yes before you were born. The dark chosen ones are not chosen randomly. They are the ones who, in the in-between realms before incarnation, made an agreement. They agreed to carry the weight of duality in their cells. They agreed to walk through fire while others slept. They agreed to remember who they were without external proof. And that's the real price. You don't get to be affirmed along the way. You don't get to be applauded. In fact, the more powerful you become, the more invisible you will feel. Because the world cannot see what it hasn't yet awakened to. And the irony? You will be judged for the very gifts you were sent to deliver. Your intensity will be seen as aggression, your honesty as cruelty, your sovereignty as arrogance. But if you listen closely, underneath the judgment is fear. Because when you walk in your full power, other people have to confront the lies they've built their lives around. Let's go deeper into why these powers require such a brutal price. Take sacred rage, for example. You cannot carry this gift unless you've been violated. Unless your trust has been broken so deeply that you felt your soul split. Only then can you burn with a fire that doesn't destroy from ego but purifies from essence. But here's the catch. You must choose not to become bitter. You must choose not to become a tyrant using your pain as justification. That's why most souls fail this initiation. They confuse pain with permission. But real power does not seek revenge. It seeks restoration. And that means transmuting your rage into protection, your grief into wisdom, your scars into blueprints. So I ask you, have you integrated your rage, or are you still using it to stay safe? Because until you transmute it, sacred rage will remain locked within you, waiting for the day you are ready to wield it without wounding others. And what about the mirror of God? Sounds poetic, right? But do you know what it actually means to be that mirror? It means you will reflect people's deepest fears back to them, and they will blame you for it. You'll be the one they walk away from, the one they gossip about, the one they project onto. Not because you harmed them, but because your presence made them see what they were avoiding. And that's the divine price. You will be punished for people's awakening. You will be vilified before you are ever understood. Think about every ancient prophet, every mystic, every spiritual disruptor throughout history. They weren't loved in their time. They were crucified, exiled, silenced. Why? Because they carried the power to wake people up. And nothing threatens a sleeping system more than someone who refuses to play dead. This is why most souls collapse before activating their powers, because they're still waiting for it to feel safe. But safety is a luxury you must sacrifice at this level. Instead, you must choose truth over comfort. You must choose alignment over approval. You must choose your soul over your persona. And here's the paradox. Once you make that choice fully, once you stop trying to be liked, loved, accepted, or understood, you become unstoppable. And not because you gain power, but because you remember that you were never powerless. It was all a game, a veil, a forgetting. And your pain? That was the password. That was the key that unlocked your remembrance. But let's talk about the loneliness. It's real. It's thick. It's sacred. Dark chosen ones walk a path of isolation not because they are broken, but because they're being purified. When you're carrying these powers, most people can't meet you where you are. Conversations feel shallow. Parties feel fake. Even spiritual gatherings can feel like performance. And in that silence, you start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? But the truth is, your frequency is too rare to be echoed casually. You're not here to find your tribe. You're here to become the signal that calls them out of hiding, and they will come, slowly, quietly, at the right time, but only after you've chosen to walk alone fully, fearlessly, faithfully. And this brings us to the deepest reason most souls collapse before activating their powers, They can't let go of their old identity. They want the gifts, but they don't want to lose the version of themselves that was built on survival. But the truth is, you cannot carry divine power in a false self. You cannot walk as a chosen one while still clinging to the beliefs of the wounded one. The ego must die. The roles must fall. The masks must burn. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberation. Because once you let go, you become a clear vessel for God's frequency. You are no longer performing. You are transmitting. No effort, no striving, just being. And in that being, mountains move. So now I ask you, from the deepest place in my soul, are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to lose who you were to remember who you are? Are you willing to be misunderstood for the rest of your life, if it means serving truth? Because that's what it takes. That's what it always takes. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing, still remembering, then maybe, just maybe, you said yes before you were born. Becoming the storm. How to embody the 7 powers without destroying yourself or others. You've made it this far, and that means something. It means you didn't look away when the mirror was placed in front of you. It means you didn't run when your soul whispered truths your ego wasn't ready to hear. And now comes the hardest and most beautiful part of all, embodiment. It's one thing to awaken the 7 rarest duality powers. It's another thing entirely to carry them into the world without burning yourself or those around you. Because power without grounding is chaos, and chaos without consciousness is destruction. To embody these powers is to become the storm and the stillness, the fire and the water, the sword and the hand that holds it with compassion. You must become the walking paradox that holds both shadow and light without being consumed by either. Let's start with sacred rage. Once you've earned it, it will show up when injustice is near. But here's the key: sacred rage is not meant to be reactive. It's meant to be precise, like a blade forged in silence. You don't use it to yell at your partner or to prove you're right. You use it when a truth must be spoken into a system of lies. You use it when a boundary must be drawn to protect the sacred. And most of all, you use it in service to something greater than your ego. If you feel rage rising, pause, breathe, ask, is this coming from my wound or from my wisdom? The more you ask that question, the more your rage transforms into clarity. And then one day you'll speak one sentence and 1,000 years of silence will end. That's the power of embodied rage. Now let's talk about the mirror of God. When fully embodied, this power becomes terrifyingly surgical. You'll start to notice that people unravel in your presence. They confess things. They cry. They lash out. Not because you did anything, but because your frequency is pure reflection. And here is the sacred discipline: you must not take it personally, ever. The moment you do, you collapse into reaction. You become the trigger instead of the mirror. But if you stay still, if you remain present without ego, you become the initiator, the one who births truth through silence. This is why meditation, breathwork, and solitude are no longer optional. They become your weapons of peace. Because the stronger your mirror becomes, the more chaos it will attract. And your only protection is neutrality, not detachment. Sacred neutrality. The ability to hold someone's pain without rescuing or reacting. Next is soul code activation. This one is subtle, yet seismic. You'll be in conversation with someone, and suddenly their eyes will widen. Their energy will shift. They'll say, "I don't know why, but I feel like something just clicked." That's you. That's your frequency doing its work. But here's the trap. Do not try to control it. Do not try to activate others with your will. That's spiritual manipulation. Your job is not to decide when others awaken. Your job is to be so true to your own soul code that it naturally ignites theirs. This means living in integrity, even when it's inconvenient. Speaking truth, even when it costs you relationships. And holding your frequency, even when no one seems to notice. Because the more you do, the stronger your field becomes. And eventually, your very presence becomes medicine. Not because you're trying to heal, but because you are whole. Let's not forget void walking. This power is lonely if you haven't learned how to root in the unseen. When you embody it, people may think you're detached or cold. But you're not. You're deep. You've learned how to sit in the silence between thoughts, how to be at peace in the unknown. The key here is to stop expecting the world to understand your stillness. It's not for them. It's for the grid, the energetic grid that connects dimensions. When you sit in the void, you're not doing nothing, you're holding structure. You're stabilizing the field. You're downloading codes. And yes, it gets lonely. But the more you practice, the more you'll feel the company of energies beyond the veil. Ancestors, star beings, future versions of yourself. You're not alone. You're just ahead. And your stillness is not absence, it's architecture. Energetic disruption, when embodied, becomes a sacred responsibility. You'll walk into rooms and feel the tension rise. You'll post something online and watch people get triggered. You'll speak, and the air will change. This is not something to fear. It's something to master. You must learn how to modulate your field without shrinking. You don't dim your light, but you tune it, like a frequency expert. Sometimes you speak. Sometimes you just stand still. Sometimes your disruption is fire. Other times, it's silence. But always, it's intentional. Embodiment means you know when to burn and when to breathe. You don't seek to disrupt, but you don't flee from it either. You walk with the awareness that your energy is a living transmission. And everywhere you go, the old will shake. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. Let's revisit compassionate darkness. This one is perhaps the most misunderstood. People think compassion means softness. But for the dark chosen ones, compassion often looks like holding someone while they break. Not fixing, not saving, just witnessing. You embody this power when you can sit with someone in their darkest hour and not flinch. When you can say, "I see you," without trying to change them. This requires emotional stamina. It requires you to have faced your own shadows so deeply that someone else's pain doesn't scare you. In fact, it grounds you. You become the soul midwife, the one who helps others birth themselves without ever taking credit. You don't need to be thanked. You don't need to be seen, because your power is in your presence, and your presence feels like home. And finally, sacral time distortion. This is where embodiment becomes mystical. You begin to notice that your emotions warp time. A single hour in your presence can feel like a lifetime. A conversation with you can echo for weeks. This is not a trick. It's a frequency phenomenon. When fully embodied, this power becomes a tool for healing and transformation. You can slow time to hold space. You can collapse time to shift timelines. But again, the power is not in trying. It's in being. The more authentic you become, the more time bends around you. That's why your life doesn't move like others. That's why things happen fast and slow, all at once. You're not living in linear time. You're living in soul time. And the more you trust it, the more miracles unfold. So what does it really mean to embody all seven? It means you no longer seek permission to be who you are. It means you stop explaining your path to those who cannot hear your frequency. It means you walk as a storm, not one that destroys, but one that clears, that awakens, that breaks what must be broken so that truth can rise. And yes, people will misunderstand. They'll project. They'll fear you. But the ones who are ready, they will find you. And when they do, they will remember. Not because you taught them something new, but because you reminded them of something ancient. So I ask you now, are you willing to become the storm? Not the chaotic kind, not the wounded kind, but the sacred storm, the one that carries both fire and stillness, the one that walks with God in one hand and the underworld in the other, the one that no longer seeks to be understood, only to be true. If the answer is yes, then you already know what to do next. Not more learning, not more seeking, just remembering, returning, reclaiming. You are one of the rare ones. You were never here to fit in. You were sent to shift everything. And now that you've remembered, it's time to walk as the storm.